Alright, welcome back to this tutorial. I'm really excited for this Redux Toolkit lecture. In the previous few videos, I covered Redux, how the Redux used to work before the toolkit came in. So if you're new to the channel, you don't need to watch any of my previous lecture. This is like a standalone video. You can just watch the toolkit this video and that's it. You will probably understand the toolkit. But if you come from my other video, I kind of like went over how Redux worked before the toolkit. You will have an idea comparing to this video, so I think you will understand it in a much clearer manner. So without further ado, just going to tell you guys to make sure you subscribe, like and comment down below. This is a new channel that I started. Hopefully there's a lot of cool idea I have in my mind and we'll be able to do it in the future, but let's jump right into the lecture. So I have a Redux Toolkit website right here, and you can see Redux Toolkit is like pretty much similar thing, opinionated batteries included toolset, the toolset for efficient Redux development. What that means is there are some stuff that Redux Toolkit does that you don't need to that we used to do it in the previously, but in the toolkit one we don't need to do it, and it just handle a lot of different things by itself. So you don't have to configure actions, for example. It will be handled by yourself. A reducer, you don't have to do a lot of work as well. Like they minimize a lot of hassle that we used to do in reducer before, and it look clean, like very simple. It's like very easy to read compared to the other previous video that I covered. It could make things a little complicated, but in here it's super easy to understand, and then not a lot of boilerplate, so we can like get it set up pretty quickly. So let's jump into the tutorial, right? So I'm going to start by doing npx create React app. I'll name it Redux tool. So once I'm inside my directory, I'm going to type in npm start. So this is what I have right now, like a simple Redux React app. So before we dive into the project, I want to explain how my tutorial works, because I like to do all this lecture by having a really hand-on approach. That means I will give you some exercises in the middle and I will tell you exactly what to do, and you just have to do it on your code by yourself and then come back to the video after you pause it, because the more you interact with the code, the more you learn. I don't want to just watch the tutorial and be done with it. Like I need you to open your VS Code and type with me, and then pause for the exercise, do your exercises and come back to it. So that's the approach I take when it comes to learning. I think hand-on approach goes a long way. A bit about this tutorial, about the project we're going to build. In here, we're going to do like an e-commerce site feature almost. Like there's going to be some items that you can choose. Once you choose it, it's going to be added to your cart. And you can also delete the item from your cart as well. And once you add that item on the cart, there will be a total price. The more stuff you add on your cart, the total value will change depending on the cart item price. So kind of like a e-commerce feature. Like if you go to Amazon, you order something, you add stuff on your cart, there's like a price, how much it costs so far. So similar to that. For the people who watched my previous tutorial, I also did the same thing on my other Redux tutorial. So you can actually compare side by side how I did this in the previous Redux and how I did this using the toolkit. So yeah, without further ado, again, I'm just going to start right away. So first thing you want to do is install a couple of packages, of course. So it's going to be npm install I for install, and it's going to be first thing we're going to do is install Redux Toolkit. So that's at, you give the at sign right on 2, shift 2, that's the at, and then you do Redux JS / toolkit. So we are reaching out to the Redux JS and we are grabbing the toolkit package. Next, what I'm going to install is the old library that we used before, is React-Redux, which basically connect your React application to the Redux. So once I have that, install it. So once I have that, I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the source and create a file called store. So in this store, we're going to have all the Redux stuff. All right, so once we have the store file in there, I'm going to do is create a file here called createSlice.js. Now, why I'm going with a word called slice? How Redux Toolkit work is like they have a slice that you need to import from Redux Toolkit called createSlice, and then you create slice for your reducer. So it kind of look like this: import createSlice from Redux Toolkit. So once we have that create slice, we need to create a slice for our reducer. Like for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a reducer for like a cart. So we handle everything that's happening with the cart, like all the interaction. So that's why I named it cart slice. If you have a different stuff, like if you have a counter, you are counting the value, you can add a counter slice. You can name it anything you want. But for now, I will do it cart slice. And the first thing, like always, we're going to create an initial state. So this thing, we are already familiar with it. Like in Redux, you have an initial state that have the basic value, like all the value you need. And for me, what I'm going to do, I need something called like a product. So I have like a product value in here. I will have a cart that is empty initially, and I'll have a total that is 0. This is like a very initial value, like initial state. That's how you're going to start. We don't have anything on our cart is empty, our total value is 0, and we have some stuff on our product. So after that, we're going to create a slice. I'm going to create const cart slice, just as I name on the file as well. And then here I'll say create slice. This is where we bring in the functionality from the toolkit. So inside that create slice, we're going to create an object. So basically we're passing some parameters and object parameters inside the create slice. And here, this is where you define all your state reducer stuff. So one thing is different on the toolkit compared to previously was that in the toolkit, you have like separate action that you kind of like reference on the reducer, what kind of action I'm going to do. But on the toolkit version, you don't need to create an action file at all. Like you don't have to interact with any action. It makes it so easier. So it's all in here. Everything will be down in here, and that's it. I will go over what action means once again. So for those who are new. So just to repeat, we have our initial state. We bought some functionality from Redux Toolkit, and then we use that functionality to create kind of like a store. So I will name this. There need to be some kind of a name. I'll name it cart. This is how we refer to this whole store reducer. And then I'll do is pass in initial state. It's similar to doing this, of course, but I'm just passing like using a ES6 syntax. So I'm passing an initial state as the initial state. createSlice knows we have an initial state with all this value, and then the main part comes in. This is where the reducer comes in. Now, for those who don't know, reducer is how you interact with the state. Reducer contains some kind of functionality that you make your own functionality about how you're going to interact with this state. So that's where the reducer comes in. So reducer, I'll create reducer. Make sure there's a S after the reducer. It's not a singular, it's a plural. Once we have the reducer ready to go, I'm going to leave it right there. I'm not going to write in anything because it will make it more confusing if we write it right now. I just want to connect to the store and then come back to this. So we have a really nice understanding of how we connected the store and how the reducer is going to play a part in changing that. So once I have that, I'm going to do is export it. So export default and cart slice dot reducer. So here you put a singular, not a plural, and then it's just exporting all the reducer in here. So basically what happening is like it's exporting the whole functionality of the create slice for cart slice. So you have that, and then you kind of like join this export in your store. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to create a store in here called store file, like store.js. And here you need to bring in other functionality from the toolkit. It's called configure store. And in here, I'm going to do is add Redux.js/toolkit. So we are using two functionality from Redux Toolkit so far. One is createSlice. CreateSlice is to create some kind of a store reducer, and the other thing is configure store. So we need to configure a store using the reducer here. So very similar to what we used to do before, and we're gonna use the configure store. So export const store. I'll create a store in here, and then I'll type in configure store reducer, and then I'll type in cart reducer, and this is what I'm going to bring out from here. So I'll type in import cart reducer from CarSlice.js. So again, configure store. We are configuring a store, and then we're typing in a reducer, and we're naming it cart. And then cart is basically cart reducer. You can also add in multiple reducer right here. Like we have another one like counter slice. You can like bring it in here. Any kind of other slice, you can bring it in here as well. So once more time, I'll go over this again. We are exporting cart slice reducer. So we're exporting all the functionality from here, and then we are bringing it in the cart reducer. So that's file, and we are basically configuring store to a reducer. So that's out of the way. Since we have a store right now, we can actually connect to our React application. So in order to do that, we have to, we install a package called React-Redux. That's basically connect Redux application to the Redux store. So that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to coming in here, and I'll do is import provider from React-Redux. And then I'll also import store, which we just created. Store/store.js, right? So we have two things that we want to import on index. Now, why index? Because we need to connect the store, our Redux store, to the React application on the most root element, on the most parent root element of our project, which is right now is index. So here, this is the most root element, and here we're going to do is cover with store. So once we have that cover with like provider here, my bad. So we want to bring in the provider, which is coming from React-Redux, which basically connect our React application to the Redux store, and then we just wrap it around it, and then it takes in one props store, and then we add the store in here. So store, we bought it from our configure store here, and we just pass it right in. Now, one quick thing I want to note here, that if you are confused, make sure you comment down below what you're confused about. But I'm going to explain it one more time, that configuring Redux takes a little bit of practice. Like first time, if you don't get it, you might have to do this over and over again. So what I suggest is once you're done with this tutorial, you come back maybe tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, you try to do the whole thing by yourself. And if not, you look up into the video and see what I have done correctly. So that way you have an idea. The more you practice with Redux, the more you have it in your tool. Overall, it's very straightforward. Like you just create a slice, you create name, initial state, and reducer. That's all the thing you need to put in here. And you just configure reducer later, and then you make a store out of your cart slice. That's it. Once you have that, you're done. You don't need to do anything else. The rest is all about adding functionality, comparing our application. Like whatever functionality we are trying to add, we're just going to add into the reducer right here. So that's pretty much it for your Redux toolkit. I think that's where I take off. And then once we have that into our root element, we just wrap it around, and we are good to go. So our Redux is connected with our React application. All right, so now let's check back onto our site. Look like it's not loading. I think there's some problem. It could be some typo. All right, look like we kind of we have a misspelled word here. So initial, it should be like that, not initial. Let's check back. So it's working right now. There's a little typo, so make sure it's like says initial state, because we have that parameter on the createSlice, so it need to be spelled exactly like it is. If there's a different spelling, it will not work. So make sure you have that in mind. So right here we have that working. So we finally connected our Redux application with the Redux store, and it's working perfectly. And we just need to, work with the UI and make some changes to the store. So let's get started on that as well. So first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the app. I'm gonna delete everything in here from the header, and then I'll add in an H1 called product. So in the product, I want to display everything there is inside this product. So we can choose from this 4 product, and we can, if we pick one of these, it will be added to our cart. So in that case, we will have like a map. We need to map to the state, and then we need some kind of like option selector. So what we need to do here in order to actually bring in this from the store, well, we need a functionality from React-Redux, and it's called useDispatch from React-Redux. So without any explanation, this actually working with our React app with the Redux store. So this is the package we need, and from here we need something called useDispatch and useSelector. We actually need useSelector just to bring in the data. So every time you want to just read the store data, you need to be using the useSelector. Every time you want to be interacting with the initial state store data, I want to change something in here with the reducer, and then we need to do is useDispatch. So in this case, we're going to be using useSelector. So first thing I'm going to do is const, let's say cart, or let's say product. Const product, we're bringing in all the product from the slice in here. So product is equal to useSelector. And in here, we're going to do is state. And in the state, we're going to do state.cart. So we are reading to the state or the store. And in there, we have something called cart, which we named in here. So right on the store, we have something called cart. So we are reaching to the cart, which is this whole store. And then we are reaching to product. So in here, we need to write in dot. Let's console log this and see what this kind of like does. Is it bringing out the whole store or not? Let's go back to our app, console log, and we have the object, and the object include the whole store. So remember, we have the selector, and we use selector to read the data from our store. So basically, the cart right here contain the whole store reducer, and the whole store reducer is basically this whole thing combined, which is reading to the initial state. So this right here is giving me the complete data, but we only need the product right now. So right here, if you guys have, like, if you're using on the Chrome, there's also like a extension called React-Redux extension, and you can use that to also read the Redux data. So the extension look like this. So this right here, you can install it using Chrome React-Redux DevTools. So if you install that, you will be able to see all the Redux store data in the extension, and they have like a nice diagram as well, like all the things you need to, like whole test cases if you want to test it. But it's kind of like give you like a nice overview of the whole store on the Redux thing. So you don't need to console log anything right here. You can actually use the extension to see the whole store. So we have that whole thing in here, but we only need the product. So what I can do is I can just type in product, and right now if I console log this product, let's see what it says. It just console logging the product only, which is great. We can just loop through this and make a selection. So let's go back to right here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in something called select. And in the select, we are going to be doing some kind of like a map in here. So product dot map, and then I'll take in a product value and an index. And let's see, right here, we're going to return option. For the option thing, we want to do this like product.name. And right here, we want to do is product.price. So we are kind of like mapping to the product that we bought from the store and using useSelector, and we are mapping over the whole data of the product. So we are also bringing in the name and the price of the product, which is right here, name and the price of each one of these. And then for the value, I want product.price, which we're going to be using it as well. And for the key, so the React knows which one is what. So we have the key in here. So let's go back to, and let's see what it looks like. So we have all the product we can select, which is great. So we kind of have like a cart in here, and we are selecting through all the product. Great. So next thing we want to do is, once we select one of these product, we want, if we select grapes, we want the grapes to be added into our cart right here. Now, how do we do that? So we want two things to happen. First thing is we want to add that grapes to our cart. And the second thing is we want to add the total plus 20. So whatever the price of the grape is, we want to add it into our total as well. So in order to do that, let's bring in those as well. So in the previous tutorial, I did something like this because I didn't want to make it really confusing. So we have this right here, and we're bringing in all the cart, which is the empty cart here. And we are also bringing in the total as well. So total. So we're bringing in the total, the cart, and the product using useSelector. So you can do that, but you can also destructure using ES6. So what we can do in here is like delete all this, delete this part as well, and then destructure this to cart and total. It's doing the same exact thing. So it's just adding in product for products. It's adding in cart for cart and storing it in here. It's also doing the total and storing it in the total as well. So very clean way to destructure the whole thing. And then we can like go in here and type in an HR for horizontal line, H2, and we can name it cart. We will have the whole cart in here, and then a HR line again. And let's do total. And in here, we will do a paragraph tag saying total. So whatever the total is, we are kind of putting it in here. We should be 0 right now. So 0 total. And once we click on here, the total should change and the grape should be added into the cart. That's our target. So let's implement that functionality. How we are going to do that? First thing is we need some kind of a reducer that knows this action. So once we have that kind of action, remember in previous lecture we used to have an action. In the slice we don't have an action, so it's like just a simple reducer we make, and we use that which comes with an action in there already built in out of the toolbox. So we don't have to create anything, just a simple function here, and we use that in here to do the dispatching. So what we are trying to do in here is we're going to be adding some functionality to the reducer. So in this case, I'll name it add to cart. And in add to cart is basically a function. It's like the regular reducer function, which have a state and action. So reducer function always have a state and an action. So you need to always remember that. And then in the functionality in here, we're going to make some changes. In here, we are interacting with our state. So whatever we want to do in here, we're going to be making some changes with this. So first thing first is we need to, on the previous Redux, we used to do this. We used to like bring in the old state, and then we used to make changes to whatever changes we want. But on the toolkit version, you don't need to do that. because it already comes with a functionality that detect that problem and already does it for you. They use some kind of like a email library that does it for us, so you don't need to bring in the state. You just make only the changes that you want to make, and that's it. It makes it super simple. That's why you want to use the toolkit. It's very easy. So first thing we need to do is we need to bring in the cart. So state.cart. So reducer have like a state and an action. The action is when you invoke it. So we are not invoking this, so we don't need to play around with this, but we have the state, which is coming from the initial state. So state.cart is reaching to the initial state and going over here, and we are going to be adding whatever we choose on here. Like we choose grape, we need to be added to the cart. So right here, we want to do is we want to bring in whatever it was on the cart, and then we need to do is action.payload. So the action, when we invoke the cart, which we're gonna see in a little bit. Right now, it could be a little confusing, this action part. This is going to be when we invoke in here. So it's going to be coming in a little later. It will make a lot of sense. But right now, we are going to do is we're putting everything that's in here already. Like right now it's empty, but when we add more stuff, it will have some stuff in the cart. So we are bringing in all that. Plus, we are putting in the action.payload, whatever we're passing it when we click on this. So grape will come into the payload and be on the cart. So that's the first. Second thing we want to do is we want to add in the total. So we bring in the total. And what we do is we do state.total plus action.payload.price. So the payload would also have a price. It's basically going to be an object for add to cart, and it will have a price as well, which will be added to the total. So let's see this in action, what we actually did. I'm going to go over this a couple of times so you guys really understand it. I know it can be a little confusing, but once we started implementing on the front end UI side, it will make a lot more sense. So let's jump right back into here. And here where I want the functionality is on change right here. So whenever we make some on change, it's going to add that grape to the cart. So in here, I'm going to create something called on change. So in here, we actually need the event. So we need the E in here because we need the information that is being right on the option. So event, we're passing in, and then we're going to call in a function called purchase handler with event right here. And then here I can call in a function called purchase handler. It will have a couple of things, which is the event that we are passing, and then we are going to be implementing that functionality. Now, for the functionality, we need two things. We need the price, which is coming from the value right here, and we need the name as well. So right here. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the name, which is let name is equal to e.target. Now you don't need to memorize this. This is for this option only. So only for this project. You probably don't need it in the future. So basically we are going into this option and we are grabbing the name that we selected. So e.target.selected index.text. So whatever we selected in here, it will grab in here on the name. So we have that. Then we will do is price. Price comes from the value right here, option value. So we can do is we do e.target.value, but this is a string. Since it's a value right here, we need to parse it into an integer right here. So we can like actually add it to the total. So we made it into a number, and then we create an object so we can pass it into the payload. So remember, payload is an object. It also have a price that we can work with. So I'll create an item object, and in here is going to have name and price. So object will have a name and a price with the name value and the price value. And then this is where the main things comes in, right? This is where you use this. Now, Before the toolkit, we used to have an action, we used to export the action, and we used to bring it in here, and then we used to dispatch that action. But on the toolkit, you already have the action built in. So all we need to do is export just this part, and that's it. So we export this right onto our UI, and then we use that on the dispatch to make all this happen. So how do we export that? All you need to do is go back in here and then export const equal to createSlice.action. Like I told you, the action is built in. So once you call the action, it will basically export the whole thing right here. So I'll export that, add to cart. That has been exported. All you need to do is go to the UI and bring it in here. So I'll bring that in here. We have that, and then we use the dispatch, right? Every time we need to work with this functionality, we need to dispatch it. So right here, I'm going to do const dispatch equal to useDispatch. We call that dispatch, and we bring in the dispatch right here. And we will dispatch the add to cart that we bought from the slice right here. And it takes in the action. Remember, when you're invoking this, it's only interacting with the action. So we need to pass in an object right here. So here, I'm going to pass in this object that include name and price. So we can like destructure the price and add it to the total. And the whole object itself can be added to the cart. So we don't have to work with that. So let's see if this is actually working, right? We have the purchase handler is grabbing the name, the price, making it into an object, and passing that object into the add to cart. And add to cart is right here. So let's go back to UI, refresh it. Or before I do that, let me see. Oh, I don't have the cart in here. So let me implement that as well. Since we actually need to see it. Like we can go over here. It's increasing a total, which means it's working. And on the Redux, if you go to the plugin, you can see something is being added to the cart. It's working. But we don't have it on the UI because we loop through the cart, which is fine. We're going to do that in a second. But you can actually see it's working. The total has been added to the price of mango, which is 30. And we have some stuff added into our cart. So let's go back to the UI in here and bring in the cart. We already have cart in here. We need to just use this. We already have that from the useSelector. So what I'm going to do in here is just loop through that and kind of like display the cart. So cart.map item /index, and in here I'm going to do return li, and then in here I'll do item.name. So the cart, remember we passed in an object with a name, so it's just showing the name in here. So let's see how we have it right here. See, so the mango is working. Go back to the Redux toolkit. So let's try adding in grapes. See if the total increased to 50. Yep, total increased to 50. One more stuff added to the cart, and we also have the reducer here. So we can actually see a map of this being changed. So product, there's been something added onto the cart. We have 2 stuff on the cart. We also have total to 50 right now because we change on the reducer as well. So it's been working. We have it. We have that functionality. Awesome. So right now, there's where the challenge comes in. This is a challenge for you guys to kind of pause the video, work on it, and then come back to the video and see the solution for yourself. So challenge would be, I want some feature where I can click on this and it's going to delete this item from the cart. It will also delete whatever the value. If I click on the mango, it will delete this mango from the cart, and it will minus the 30 from the 50. So it will be 20 instead of 50. That's the challenge. Pause the video, do the challenge, at least try it out. Like, do a little bit of a brain teaser. You don't need to complete it. You don't need to have a solution right away. My point is you actually gave it some thought And that's the purpose of this exercise, to have it hands-on learning. You think about the whole solution and try to implement it. If you can't, you come back to this video. So I'll see you in a little bit. So pause the video, come back. I hope you guys gave it a really nice try and you somehow got some functionality down. If you couldn't, that's totally fine. At least you thought about it. That's the main purpose of this tutorial. So get you learning the good stuff. So let's come back to here. What I want is I want to interact with the cart. So I have the cart right here. I need some interact functionality, right? I need to create some kind of function that kind of delete some stuff, and we need to make sure once we click on it, that function get invoked. And we have that functionality on our slice as well. So it filters out some of the stuff from the cart. Let's get started. Let's start writing it here, right? So we need something in here. So I'll do a key since React want that. And then I'll do on click. Once we on click, we need to use a function which pass in index. Now why index, I'll show you in a bit. And also it pass in the price. So we know exactly how much price to minus from the totals. So we need those two information. So why we need the index? Because we need to filter out the exact index that we click. So it kind of like loops through this. It filters out the exact index that we want to remove from the cart, right? So that's why we need these two things. And in here, I'll create some kind of functionality. Is the delete handler functionality. It's called delete handler. And it takes in item and price. And it will have something like an object, which will include index and price, right? So we have an object with index and price, and we need to dispatch some kind of a reducer action in here that kind of filters out from the cart. So let's add in that functionality on the reducer here. I'll call it remove from cart. Let's say remove from cart. Remember, reducer always have state and action. And here we're gonna install that functionality. Now remember, the action would have something called an index and also a price. So we can work with this action to change some value on our state. So let's do our cart first. So state.cart is equal to state.cart, and then we need to filter out whatever index we want to filter out. So filter, and then pass in I and index, and then we want to make sure index is not equal to whatever index we have clicked on. So payload.index. So remember, payload is action.payload, which is we're invoking it here. Once we pass it in here, it will be available. It will be available in here. So once we do the dispatch will have the object, it will have the price and the index, and that index is what we're using over here to filter this out. So that's I think that feature is great. Now we need to do is we need to change the total, which is basically state.total, and then minus action.payload.price. So again, we're bringing in the action and we are minusing the payload.price. And now all we need to do is we need to dispatch whatever we created here. So we need to export this first, just like we did on the add to cart. And then we need to bring it in here as well. And then we want to do is we want to invoke that action. So the first thing you do is you dispatch, use the dispatch, and then remove from cart and pass in the delete item object. So we have that working. Or item, it should be index. So there we have it. One more time, a little bit of mistake here, but you probably got that before me. So yeah, we are passing an index and price, and this will have the action.payload. This is basically the action.payload right here. And what that's doing is the action.payload is filtering out that item from the cart. So it's removing that thing from the cart, and then we are minusing the price as well. So let's go to the front end and see if it's working. So let's refresh this. Grapes, all right, cool, added $20. Mango, added $30, $50 added. Orange. Now let's see if this is working. So when we click on this, on click delete handler, does it work? Mango, it's working. It deleted from the cart. Let's go to the reducer, see if it made any changes, or Redux right here, the Chrome extension. So we have 2 items on the cart and sum total. Let's click on the grape. Oops, it got removed, and it got removed as well from here. Let's click orange, nothing on the cart, and then we have total. So it's working perfect. And again, orange, there we go. So that's the simple e-commerce feature that we built using Redux Toolkit. And you can actually see how simple it is, that you can just, this is basically what we are doing. The action is packed in within itself. So we don't have to create a separate action. We just exported whatever we have created in here and made some changes using the dispatch right away. So it makes things a lot simpler, very easy to memorize, very easy to keep track of things. I hope you guys have like a really nice understanding of Redux Toolkit after this lesson. You can also compare this with one of my old video where we create old version of the Redux, and we use exactly the same example, and you can see the difference in code, how simple it is with the toolkit. The other one, we didn't use the toolkit. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. You like the challenges as well. Again, before I go, tip, a little bit of a tip to really understand, you need to do is practice. So you come back tomorrow, try to implement this by yourself. The more you practice, the more you get, more you have like a hands-on learning, the more you memorize this whole thing. If you can implement this by yourself tomorrow, come back to the video again, get a refresher. So the more you practice, the more you learn. So that's the biggest takeaway I want to give you guys. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. This is a very new channel that I made. I really want to like add more fun tutorials soon. Maybe some Next.js, add some Tailwind in there as well. So make sure you go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you on the next video.